Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy you are joining us in this session. We, the Global Logistics Cluster Budget team, Emin Mesrati and I, will take you through the financial figures both in field operations and global initiatives led by the Global Logistics Cluster Support team. I'm giving the floor to Emin now, who will give you the overview of the budgetary figures of the field operations. Emin, over to you.
Thank you, Julia, and hello everyone. So we will start by a funding overview of the different logistic clusters and sectors for 2022. As we can see, the total funding requirements overall are $83 million across all countries and operations. And of course, some operations will have more needs than others depending on the scale and strategy. It's also very important to note that these are the operational requirements as identified at the beginning of the year, and it might be prone to revision depending on the context and funding and how the situation evolves. Now, if we look at the funding levels, we can see that some operations are better funded than others, and some are even covered till the end of the year. For the operations that are not fully funded, we can note two key points. The first one is that we're obviously still in June, and usually funding comes progressively throughout the year. And the other reason, which is also very important, is that the funding appetite might not be very high for some regions or countries, and that makes fundraising a bit more challenging. It's also not shown here on the chart, but if we want to have a look at the aggregated level of funding across all operations, we can see that we're funded at 65%, meaning that out of the 83 million requirements, we are funded at 65%, which is around $54 million. In the next slides, we will have a closer look at the available funding, these $54 million, by operation and later on by donor to have the full scope of the funding situation. In this slide, we will have a closer look at the funding per country in 2022 in terms of amounts. So what this represents is the available funding per operation as of May 2022. It's important to note here that the amounts shown are a combination of funds received in 2022 and funds carried over from 2021. And of course, carried over does not necessarily mean leftover, but these are mostly grants that were received last year to partially cover the operation this year as well. And this is a distinction that we make in terms of funding availability. We consider the funds available as soon as they are received, and that's why we have both 2021 and 2022. And of course, these amounts are proportional to the scale of the operation and the operational requirements. In this case, South Sudan, for example, might have the highest amount in terms of funds availability, but is only funded at 89% so far. And in contrast, other countries might have less availability, but just enough to cover the operational requirements. As we said earlier, the sum of the available funds across all countries is $54 million, some received in 2021 and some received in 2022. In the next slide, we will have a general overview of the source of this funding by donor. What we can see here are the yearly contributions by donor over the last 4 years, or more accurately, the last 3.5 years. We have to note that we also included in these charts contributions made to the Global Logistics Cluster to fund activities like preparedness, capacity strengthening, or our most recent project, Environmental Logistics. If we look at the trend over the years, we can see a decrease in overall contributions in 2020 and 2021, and this is partially due to the scale down of a few of our operations like Yemen or Syria, for example. As always, we would like to show our appreciation to our donors and highlight their crucial role in enabling the cluster and the whole community of partners to implement our activities. Thank you. Now I would like to give the floor to Julia as she will walk us through our global activities. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, Min. So let's move from the field to the global initiatives and activities for the whole partners community. Here we can see the actual expenditure for the Q1 in 2022. In Q1, we have spent $1 million out of 6 millions available for the global initiatives and activities planned in 2022, and out of 9 millions planned. So we have planned 9 millions, we have available 6 millions, and so far we have spent $1 million. We will look at the entire 2022 plan later. As you can see in the left infographic in dark blue, as my t-shirt. Out of 1 million, almost 50%, a bit less, of our spending on global projects, and particularly on preparedness. You can note the low level of expenditures for capacity training activities, and it is because the training initiatives in 2022 are underfunded. And for the WREC project, Green Logistics project, we are at the stage of building a team. The second biggest part is on the direct operational support of the country operations in the red color. And it is information management, service provision and service management, RITA, and our operational desk officers. In the last part, in the gray, is the support team, cross-cutting, management, admin, and budget. So let's move to the right infographic, where we can see that our financial sources are almost equally distributed between three sources. Number one is the WFP corporate funding. We call the PSA here. The donor funding, the biggest part, and the cost we recover directly from the country logistic cluster operations. We can move to the next slide. We are moving from the expenditures to the plan, to the needs-based plan. We have seen these figures during the last global meeting, where we covered why our plan was increasing from 2018 to 2022. And it is because the Global Logistic Cluster Support Team was launching the new projects to implement the strategy 2018-2022 to serve the partners community. As you know, the Logistic Cluster has a new strategy to cover 2022-2026. Let's look at the 2022 plan based on the new strategy together. Our 2022 needs-based plan is $8.8 million. The plan is broken down into 4 pillars of the strategy. The operational support takes 17% out of total needs-based plan, and it includes the major part of the operational information management support and the tools used by the country operations, such as Humanitarian Logistic Operational Guide, LOG, gap settings analysis, GNA, and LOGAI. The partnership base, which is 26% of our budget plan, includes partnership, advocacy, and outreach projects, and also the WREC, the Green Logistic project. Okay, the next pillar takes almost a quarter of our budget. The biggest part of the standard and the policy covers the Logistic Capacity Assessment Tool, in short, LCA. In standard and policy, we also have service provisions and service management, RITA tool, and the partial information management and operational teams. At the last and the biggest pillar is the strengthening response capacity. It covers the field-based preparedness and the training projects. Let's see what we managed to get for our 2022 plan and what are our unmet needs for the global initiatives and activities. And it will be our last slide. So 20% of our plan we cover with WFP corporate funding, we call it PSA. 11% comes from the direct cost attribution to the logistic cluster country operations. And 40% comes from our generous donors, BHA, ECHO, UPS, and Airbus foundations to cover preparedness, WREC, Green Logistics, and the partially capacity strengthening and partnership. So let's see where we still have the gaps. The biggest part of our shortfall is for updating the Logistic Capacity Assessment Tool, LCA. And the need for the LCA is 1.4 million USD. The second biggest uncovered activity is the capacity building. In 2022, our needs for the capacity building is $800,000. We have got 60,000 from UPS for the VR, virtual reality updates, and we are very grateful for this donation. and the German THW will kindly host and cover the cost for a face-to-face LRT in autumn. So our unmet needs for the training initiatives is 625,000 this year. We are looking for funding to strengthen the network and outreach as well. We are kindly appealing to all of you to join together for our common needs. And if you have an opportunity to support the fundraising for these initiatives. We want to express our gratitude once again to all our donors for their trust and their support of the logistic cluster community. I hope our short speech was not too boring. I know listening about numbers sometimes cannot be so funny as listening to the actual implementation of operational projects. But only if we have funding, we can reach our goals. Thanks so much for your attention.